Welcome to Print Fix Friday, episode 21, where you definitely don't want to be drinking that alcoholic forbidden milkshake that is resin. And that's right, we're going to be talking all about resin 3D printing in this episode of Print Fix Friday. Let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to Print Fix Friday, where we talk about resin. We get deep into resin because February is the month of resin. We got a Totoro model that's seen some better days. I think he had a little too much Taco Bell. We then move into why you should never leave printers unattended, especially for the first layers, because good Lord have mercy, one of the worst Prusa fails that I have ever seen. And then finally, we continue my warpath against white filament and why it truly matters, and also probably some belts or V-wheel problems. All this and more, let's fix those fails. And let's start off with My Neighbor Totoro. This fail comes all the way from Sweden. Our good buddy Jimmy posted this in our Patreon Discord in the Print Fix Friday channel, saying, I think Totoro's ass blew up. And while Totoro might have had a little too much Taco Bell, I don't actually believe it's the Taco Bell. Have a feeling it's more of his Jimmy's got rustled. Because it's Jimmy. Anyways, he sent us this fail, and instantly I looked at this and I knew what happened. If you are new to resin printing, you might not know the bubble problem. Resin is not only toxic, but it's also a liquid, right? You can see his vat down here. I believe this is a Photon Mono X. This Totoro is not printed amazingly well. We don't have any holes up here at the top, and what happened is it created a suction force, and eventually that suction force said, see you later, nerd, and noped out of the situation. So I had Jimmy send us the lychee slicer file, so we're gonna take a look at it together. Now, one thing that I find interesting is he's got these axes of rotation here. I have no idea what they're for. To this day, still don't know. But the big deal with this Totoro is that, dude, it's a massive suction cup. Like a massive, massive suction cup. And to prove it, let me show you. We can see that this is a big suction cup, and we're actually live rendering the file out. We're gonna take it into UV Tools. UV Tools is gonna show us where the problem is. We had a massive suction cup up until that hole opened up. It's 2,300 layers, so it's gonna take a second, even with this computer. Unrelated to all this, I too have that exact same Totoro model. Mine is considerably smaller, and I ended up putting a bunch more drain holes. I too printed my Totoro on his side like this, so I made sure to put a drain hole on the side of him so that the air can always rush in. But just like the fools rush in, this wants to get the ever-loving hell out of there. Okay, now we're inside of UV Tools. Ignore the fact that it's an old version. It doesn't matter at this point. The things that we're trying to showcase are going to be stupidly obvious as soon as we get this moving. We are going to start having it search for issues. Now, let's let it go ahead and do its thing. Don't worry, this does take some time. It's normal. All right, we're done, and we have some islands for sure. These are not the island boys. They're better. And they're easily fixed, but we definitely have some suction cups and a lot of them. Let's look at these suction cups. So this suction cup is normal. This is the base. When you have an angled base like this, or an angled raft, it will create a suction cup. Some people like it, some people don't. I recently switched over to this style of raft, which still provides a fair bit of support and strength to that build plate, but it does not create as much suction force. To me, it's a little bit safer. But we're not too worried about this. We are worried about this massive suction cup. Now we see, as soon as we get a hole, that one on the tail there opens up. The problem is, if the suction force is too strong, the part will cavitate and quite literally collapse on itself, creating a cavity. And I believe that's exactly what happened here. I believe specifically on the tail, the hole did not happen fast enough. The tail cavitated, causing the rest of the model to fail alongside of it, because only as soon as that hole opens up, this massive area finally becomes usable once again. That suction cup is bad news bears if you are running MSLA, which is exactly what this is designed for. UV Tools is the cheating software to make resin 3D printing easy. Make sure you get subscribed. We're going to do a whole rundown of UV Tools, what it means, how to use it, how to look at it in an upcoming video this month. So stay tuned, seriously. But like overall, there's not that many issues. We've got, you know, some little islands, we've got some bigger islands, some resin traps. It's saying that basically this interior bit is not going to cure all that well, and the light won't penetrate it, so this would be an area where uncured resin would remain trapped. The software solution for it is to delete the pixels, which I don't think is a good solution, so I generally ignore resin traps. But the nice thing about this software is that it will auto-fix a lot of these problems for you. Again, we're going to cover this in a future video, but I wanted to show this to you. This is what caused the problem. It is quite literally the suction force. When you're dealing with an MSLA printer, when you're trying to rip the build plate and the part off of an FEP sheet, yes, it's as violent as it sounds. If you have a suction cup, all of a sudden, it's really hard to get things off. If we take a look at what a suction force looks like, we're going to use this bin as my stand-in. It's all of our spare parts for the E3D V6 ecosystem. If we take a suction cup here, stick it to it, and lock it, eventually you can pull it off, versus a suction cup that's not, right? So if you don't have to deal with suction, it's not that big of a deal. And this goes the same for your FEP. So while I don't know for sure if it does damage your FEP, I would venture to say that it stretches out the FEP. And when FEP is not taut up against the build surface, you will see problems with your prints. So, suction cups, bad. So how do we fix this, Grant? Well, spoiler alert, we got it fixed. So let me show you what we did. The first thing we did with old Totoro here is we tipped him on his back. Since we have a hole in the flute, it actually makes this relatively easy for us to deal with. So we're gonna tilt old Totoro here on his back. Lychee Slicer's gonna freak the ever-loving hell out, because that's what Lychee Slicer does when these kind of things occur. And it's like, ah! Supports are everywhere, I don't know what to do! I really wish that when this happened, Lychee just be like, yeah, dog, we ain't even gonna try. But I do get a laugh every single time it happens. I would probably tilt him a little bit forward, just like that. Yep, supports are still gonna look like crap. Yeah, we'll go with that. We're gonna just go ahead and do automatic supports, just auto. We definitely want to remove the old supports. And one other thing that Jimmy was telling me is that this is actually going to be a lamp for a friend. So we want to make sure that it supports on ground only. Now we have effectively the completed Totoro. We can see that there's basically no suction. There's a little bit of one, but I don't think that's big enough to cause any problems. We can see immediately we have a way for air to get in and resin to get out. All the way up into his big body. We have some extra holes in the feet. Technically, the ears will become a suction, but again, it's not that big of a deal. And the other thing that we recommended to Jimmy is that he looks at thickening Totoro a little bit. It was only about a millimeter and a half thick, and at that thickness, you do risk the part popping. Even if you have good supports, good holes in it, you have to deal with minimum thickness. Now, personally, keeping it hollow on the inside really complicates the print, because especially up here on the stomach, that's a lot of bridging that resin doesn't like to do. But I know, because we have the photos, that it actually worked. Jimmy was able to properly print Totoro with a little bit of damage down there by the booty, but ultimately I think the part came out good. We can see maybe, is that a little bit of artifacting? Could be an area where supports got messed up. But when you're looking at resin, you have to think of what is not only the orientation, but where is the fluid going to go? Where is the raw resin going to go? And if it has no way for it to normalize pressure as it's pulling off the plate, you have a suction cup. You've got yourself a problem. Next, we've got a submission from Twitter. RIP. This is probably the worst Prusa fail I've seen in a long time. Long time. Running a student makerspace results in testing basically every failure mode in our Prusa. I present you the most catastrophic one yet. Holy Toledos. And clearly I wasn't the only one that thought this was rough. 418 likes, 30 retweets, 41 comments. This has got to be the worst Blob of Doom that I've ever seen. It could be that it's all white filament, and white filament is truly the worst color for 3D printing, but hey, at least you're using it on functional parts. But you can say the PSA is wait until the first layers are done. This is such a bummer because honestly, the entire E-axis at this point is trash. Man, you're not salvaging those printed parts. It's not happening. You've got to take the entire thing apart to get to it. Honestly, for the cost of a V6, I just redo it. Oh my gosh. So how do you solve this? If this is a PLA print, I don't really like PLA on the texture sheets. Quite frankly, I've had very little luck with the textured sheets personally. I know a lot of people have good luck with them. Me, not a ton. We basically run nothing but the smooth sheets. We do have regular texture sheets, and we have the satin sheets. I do need to give those a shot. Let me know if you want to see about that in an upcoming video. We could certainly talk about the different types of textured and smooth sheets that exist out there. Just like we want to do one for resin printing, I'd love to maybe do one for FDM. I will say I spot a cheeky V6 cutaway in the background, which is always great for teaching kids all about how hot ends work. We used to have one until I dropped it and broke it. But we used to have one. This has got to be, I would guess, like a 24, maybe 18 to 24 hour print. That is just an absolute glob. Thankfully, the V6 is pretty robust. You might be able to heat it up and slowly let this plastic melt away, but dude, I don't know if I would. I mean, as a makerspace, right, especially for students, this would be a great learning opportunity for them, if nothing else. But clearly, this is not a stock extruder. Prusa doesn't make white extruders, so this is maybe not the first time they've been through this scenario, which is okay. Again, this stuff happens. But yes, always make sure that first layer goes down well if you are going to leave your printer unattended. But more specifically, don't leave your printers unattended. It's dangerous at best, and at worst, it's a house fire. It's actual damage. Nobody wants that. So how do we solve this? Well, if you are a makerspace, I highly recommend that the printers all minimally go on smart plugs and that you utilize a webcam, wise cam, whatever you want to use to watch it. If you are not there and a print has gone nuclear like this, you can just kill the smart plug and then turn it back on 10 or 15 seconds later so that the printer can cool itself down. This will mitigate this type of damage and make it considerably easier to deal with. If you're looking for links for cheap smart plugs, webcams, and all that, we'll link to stuff down in the description for you if you want to take a look. But this is a really bad print, but not as bad as my segue to our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. If you love 3D printing, but you hate the effort and the failures and all the frustration that comes with it, hey, you've probably found the right video series on a pretty decent YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed. You can reach out to the experts at 3D Musketeers. We can help you make those prints not only do better, those of you that have emailed us, we have a public email address, so you guys can email us if you have those fails, but we can also take over that printing for you if you're just kind of fed up and you need to get stuff done. We understand that it's never perfect. We're here to help. The experts at 3D Musketeers have over 50 years of combined experience in the 3D printing industry. Myself, I have almost 15 years. Been too damn long. Been too long. I feel like I'm losing my hair of this. I think we need to keep sponsorship. hit me up. But we can help you make those prints real. Whether it is carbon fiber polycarbonate parts that need to be so damn strong, you don't trust your own printer to do it, we have ones that can, or you're trying to reconstruct an accident scene. This was yesterday's time lapse, a gorgeous crash car. If you guys want to learn more about it, go watch that video. I did a voiceover so you can learn about this actual accident and what happened. We can help you visualize this now with high-end 3D scanning available at 3D Musketeers. We'll link to that video so you guys can see the unboxing. But enough of the call to actions. Make sure you get subscribed, Patreon, YouTube channel memberships, all the things you do to support the content creators that you love. Let's get back into the fails. With this, especially if it's something where you're involving students or education, these kind of fails don't do well. Ultimately, it looks bad when you come back and someone's like, hey, I saw your printer failed. Or an administrator's like, another failure? To solve this problem, having that system to watch over the prints, somebody to check in on them routinely. I mean, seriously, Wise cams are cheap. You can literally see the one that we use right there. Now, ours is a V2. That's flashed to be a webcam, so I can run it via Octoprint. So we can kill the print remotely if we need to, but you don't even need that. A smart plug and a webcam, or a smart plug and a normal security camera, will go miles into dealing with big failures like this and making them a thing of the past. Checking in on the print once every half hour, 45 minutes for the first couple of hours is generally okay, if you must leave it unattended. Let's be real. While we say to leave printers unattended, it's not realistic to do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So how do you do it? You put insurance in place to make sure that everything is good. If you are going to run printers unattended, make sure you have a good fire suppression system, or at least somebody on call that is either on site or close by in case something does go wrong. You don't want to end up with a fire. And while the Prusa Mark III S is a phenomenal printer, it's got thermal runaway protection and all the great protections that you would want out of a 3D printer, it can't stop this from being a potential fire hazard. That's not something the Prusa can do. Now, of course, the ignition temperature for PLA, PETG, ABS is all quite a bit lower than what we print at, but freak accidents happen. Ask our buddy Pooch. He had a complete hot end melt on him. We still don't know why that occurred, and I'd love to have you back on the podcast, Pooch. I would definitely want to talk about more business topics. It's always fun to talk about business, but put those insurance things in place. Teach the kids early on that these are technically quite dangerous machines and we need to respect them. And if you approach this with a method of respect and understanding that these machines can hurt, you'll be all right. The last fail of the week, and guys, let me know what you think down in those comments. We only did 3 fails this week because I want to dive a little bit deeper into the problems, talk about the solutions with a little bit more clarity, so that we're not just really talking about how to fix it, we're showing you a little bit further how to fix it. Let me know if you like that format, if you want to go back to the old one where we're just rapid firing the fails, quick little ways to solve them, move on to the next one. Love to know your opinion down in those comments. But the last and final fail, I really just, it's all white. Why is white filament such a problem? It's titanium dioxide. The answer is titanium dioxide. Is there any way to reduce these bands on my Z-axis? They're not awful, but I've seen better. Ender 3v2. Let's look at this. I will say the first thing, your first layer is not right. We've got an, I think this, I'm assuming this is an elephant's foot. I don't believe this is intended. Looking at this first layer here, the skirt, it looks like it's a little too close. We can also see some adhesion issues in that back corner. Get that first layer right first. If this is, well, actually I can tell you it's not intended because it definitely isn't a problem up here. So we definitely have a first layer problem. This print surface, I hate it. They call it carbonium or some bullshit name for what is basically silicon carbide, otherwise known as sandpaper. That's right, if you happen to drag your nozzle along this print surface, you're literally sanding away your nozzle. I don't like these print surfaces. Go get a flex bed. It just makes printing easier. Flex plates are the way of the future for 3D printing on the consumer market. If you disagree with me, I will argue that out with you in the comments. But you better come swinging. I know the only ways that glass is better. Certain polymers really don't like flex plates, and glass can be better for those. But man, I've had more issues with glass than I've had with my flex plates, and there is nothing more satisfying than popping parts off a build plate like that and not having them take a chunk of glass with them. Just gonna put that one out there. But white filament, like we've talked about in previous episodes, and I feel like I need to just do a whole video about why white filament sucks. It shows all the little problems. Now, we do have some issues here. We can't ignore this. We can't ignore these lines either, I think. And this is my theory. And it has to do with that we see a big kind of line bulge here, but not much in the back. I believe you might need to tighten one of your belts. I guess that would be your X-axis. Yeah, I think you need to tighten that X-axis belt just a little bit. That would explain for this little bit of wiggling. Check to make sure that your extruder itself is an Ender 3. Make sure that that extruder carriage is not rocking. If it's rocking at all, look at tightening those eccentric nuts that hold the V-wheels onto the V-slot frame. We covered this in a recent video on our maintenance of the Ender 3, where we talked about making sure those V-wheels are nice and tight, but not overly tight, because of course that causes excessive early wear. We'll card to that video so you guys can take a look at it, but I would start there. I would look at making sure your belt is tight if it is the V2, which it absolutely is. Tightening the belts is so easy. It's that little blue knob at the end of both your X and your Y axis. It makes life so much easier than the old V1 system. I'm glad that Creality made that little upgrade. It was not that expensive and was absolutely worth the extra money in my humble opinion. But ultimately, white filament does show a lot more bullshit than other filaments do. We can see though that overall, the print's not that bad. I will say lighting plays a big part of this too. If you're lighting it directly overhead with LEDs, similar to how we do it on our time-lapse where we only have above lighting and you don't have any lighting from the front, those shadows are going to be incredibly highlighted, causing problems. So try it with maybe a gray and see if you still have these issues. If you do, I'm gonna point at the X-axis if this is not something that should look like this. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The skirt looks a little close, but it might look okay. It's tough to tell. The photo's not like in perfect focus, and you really do need that perfect focus for this to work. But it could be rocking of the E-axis as well. It's why I don't like V-wheels. They end up wearing out and you get too much play in them. And while yes, you can tighten them over time, it's one bit of maintenance that I don't want to do. Yes, you do have to lubricate ball bearings. You have to make sure you don't gouge into the smooth rods. But to me, it's a lot easier to put a drop of oil on once a month or re-grease it once a year by taking it apart for yearly maintenance than it is to basically every 100 hours of printing or so, make sure that my V-wheels are not wearing too far too quickly. Now, thankfully, they're nice and cheap to replace. We'll link to some down in that description, so if you do need new V-wheels, they're dirt cheap. You can go get them. But I would first start with making sure that first layer is buttery smooth. Make sure it doesn't have gaps in between the lines, and make sure it doesn't have ridges where the lines meet. If you have ridges, you're too close. If you have gaps, you're too far. Billy Rubin, a great friend of the channel and a podcast guest. We got to get Billy back on. If you want to see Billy on the podcast, let me know. We'll see if we can get her scheduled for a future episode. She did a great infographic. We'll put it on the screen so you guys can see it. We'll link to it in the description as well, where you can also buy them if you want, to depict how to level a bed and what it looks like and what your expectations are for prints. Make sure that build surface is icy clean, especially for glass. Clean it with hot water and dish soap. Touch it like you would a vinyl record. And for all you children out there that don't know what the hell I'm talking about, don't touch the front or back, just hold it by the sides. Your fingers, your hands, you've got oil on your skin. You're gonna have potentially oil on your build plate from touching it with your grubby mitts. So make sure your build plates are also clean. That will keep you from having any issues with your build plate adhesion, assuming your first layer is perfect from there. That's really all I got for you guys today. A shorter style episode, but probably roughly the same amount of length at the end of the day. Again, let me know your thoughts down in those comments about this style. If you like the more deeper dives or if you want to have more in one episode, I'd love to know your opinions. That's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. For example, I have the base of the Peacemaker bust that we did recently. We'll put it next to me while I'm doing this. Stick a suction cup to... Shit, the part is... part's not solid. Yep, nope. Is there something else? Hey, thanks so much for watching, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our patrons whose names are listed at the $5 tier and above right next to me. If you want to support this channel, you can do so at patreon.com/3D Musketeers, or we have YouTube channel memberships now where you can join for as low as couple of bucks, and it helps our channel grow significantly. Right below me will be the entire Print Fix Friday series, where you can see the fails, learn a little bit about them, and every now and then I just troll because it's fun. And right next to that is going to be our printer maintenance series, because if you're watching these, you might need to go watch those as well. Love to know what kind of content you guys want to see in the future. Let me know down in those comments. I will see you in the next one. Take care.